You did something you didn't even realize, but for this person it was impossible to ignore. It wasn't big, it wasn't planned, but it stirred something. At that moment, this person pretended they didn't feel anything. They looked away, kept their tone steady, stayed silent. But inside, something broke. You showed a care that this person had never received, a presence that demanded nothing in return. This person was taken aback, because they weren't ready to feel safe, because safety for them always came with a cost. Yet you didn't demand anything. You just stayed. You were present. You acted. And because of that, this person could no longer pretend. Since that day, something changed. This person began to notice, not in you, within themselves. They realized they had always loved. They just didn't have the courage to admit it. And you didn't ask for any of this, but you were the one who lit the spark. You were the one who awakened it. This person still tries to appear strong, still attempts to rationalize, but now when they look at you, they know. And this awareness will linger, even if you don't say anything more, even if you distance yourself, even if it never happens again, because this person has already realized, and there's no going back. You did something unplanned. You didn't even know you were doing it. You had no intention of causing any effect. You didn't seek impact. You had no speech, no pose, but you did. And since then, this person hasn't been the same. Not because you did something extraordinary, but because for the first time in a long while, someone was real. And that was enough. Yes, it was enough. A simple choice, a straightforward action, a reaction without a filter. Maybe for you it was just natural. For this person it was unprecedented. There was something there that this person couldn't name, but they felt it. In the way you looked at them, in the way you listened, in the way you didn't pressure them. It was there, without you realizing it, that this person saw themselves, not as they have been, but as they always were before hardening, before the masks, before the distrust, before learning to defend against what they most wanted to feel. You didn't ask for anything. You didn't expect anything. But you gave everything that was essential, and that broke the protective system that this person had built so meticulously. Because some people learn to live without affection. Some people can only relate to what they already know how to control. Some people feel but can't admit it. They love but only if the love is silent. And then you arrived, and this person lost their escape. It was as if everything that had been pushed down suddenly rose, without warning, without control, without restraint. You were presence, and that was too much for someone who only knew absence. You were silence where there was only noise. You were stability where there always had been instability. You were truth where there had always been intention, and that created cracks. Yes, you caused that, and this person will never say it in so many words, but the soul has already spoken, because now this person notices in their body, in the rhythm, in the memory, the scent of the moment, the shock of the touch, the way time changed after what you did. It wasn't about what you said. It was about what you didn't force. It was about what you allowed. This person began to realize they felt, and that was the most frightening part. Because some people spend so long avoiding love, that when love arrives calm, simple, available, they see it as a threat, not because you are a threat, but because it demands a courage that this person still doesn't know if they have. You offered something that can't be bought, and for that reason, something that can't be denied. No matter how much this person tries to hide it, they feel. They feel in a way that is unsettling. You did something that brought back memories of affection, from childhood perhaps, from a time when love wasn't a bargain, when it wasn't necessary to protect oneself so much. And then, from that day on, everything became more perceptible. The absences became more glaring, the escapes more obvious, the blockages more burdensome. Because when you feel something genuine, everything superficial starts to feel bothersome. And that's what's happening with this person. You took them out of the place where they felt secure, in their armor. And now they have to deal with the fact that perhaps deep down, they always wanted to surrender, but they didn't know how. They didn't know to whom, and more than that, they didn't know if they still could. But with you, the realization became inevitable. This person started to see you in detail, to remember you in random moments, to feel your absence even without knowing if they wanted your presence. Because when something truly touches you, it echoes. That's what you caused, without rehearsing, without trying. And maybe now you're reading this and thinking, but I didn't do anything special. And that's exactly why. You didn't do it to win someone over. You didn't do it to be admired. You did it because that's who you are. Because there's something in you that can't be anything less than whole. And that's what confuses this person the most. Because no one has ever been like that before. Because they haven't learned to receive, they only learned to hold back. But now what you've awakened can no longer be closed off. It has already been seen. It has already been felt. It's already too real to be denied. Maybe this person still doesn't know how to get closer. Maybe it will take time. Maybe they won't even be able to. But something in you remains, in their memory, in their body, in their gaze. And no matter how much time passes, this person can no longer live without noticing. You changed the reference. You touched something that was dormant. And you did it without promising, without demanding, without invading. You just were. And just for that, you've already become unforgettable. And don't be deceived. This person still feels, even if they pretend to forget, even if they smile at the opposite side, even if they say otherwise. Because when something is felt, there's no way to undo it, not with time, not with distance, not with silence. And you know, deep down you also felt it. You know, even if you try to doubt it, even if you want to rationalize it, even if you pretend you didn't feel anything that important, but you felt it. Because no one goes through a moment like that and comes out unscathed. You noticed it too. Not right away, but gradually, with some delay. In the silence that followed the meeting, in the absence that hurt more than it should have. You realized when you tried to move on as if nothing had happened, and couldn't. When you heard someone's voice and inside something tightened because it wasn't the voice you wanted to hear. When you took the same paths, had the same conversations, lived the same routine, but nothing felt whole. Because that presence, that person who now pretends not to see, remains alive within you. And that's something no one can take away. You tried to move on, tried to protect yourself, tried to tell yourself it was no big deal. But every time you lay down in the dark, every time you looked to the side and the silence was there, it was that presence that filled the space. That person, who now pretends to be strong, also closes their eyes and feels the moment when everything changed, feels the memory of that gaze that broke through the defenses. And now, everything seems to have more layers. Everything feels deeper than before. The simple things ache, the light conversations seem empty, the touch of someone no longer sends the same shiver. Because something got activated, and the body remembers, the soul records it, and perception doesn't go back. That person notices you even on the days when they say nothing, notices in the pauses, in the gestures that echo even when absent, in the way the world itself lost its charm after feeling you. That's why this distance confuses, because the connection wasn't lost, it just hid away. But perception no longer allows living in the same place as before. Do you feel that too? Or are you trying to pretend you don't see? Because it's no longer possible to unsee what was perceived. It's impossible to unfeel what was carved inside. It's impossible to go back to what it was after being touched in such a human, profound, and real way. That person remembers details you couldn't even imagine. The sound of your laughter, about how you move your own fingers when you're silent, the way you hesitate before saying something too sincere. You left traces, and even while trying to erase them, they remain alive, because they are not external traces. They are internal. They are noticeable without being seen. They are invisible, and yet undeniable. This person learned to perceive you, and that was stronger than any declaration, deeper than any promise. It was you right there doing what you did without the intention of being seen, and still being seen in a way that no one ever has. This person never had the courage to say this out loud, and maybe they won't. Because what is truly felt often scares too much to turn into words, but you feel it too. You know. Because since then, nothing else seems to fit. Everything feels out of place, as if you're living on the outside while something inside is constantly calling for what was real. Are you living, or just occupying space? Because after experiencing this, after touching this level of perception, it's hard to accept lukewarm relationships, shallow connections, presences that don't penetrate. It's hard to accept less. And maybe you don't know, but this person is also dealing with this, trying to seem fine, trying to act as if nothing has overflowed, trying to deny what has already been acknowledged deep in their heart. But the gaze doesn't lie. The body doesn't lie. The energy doesn't lie. When two people truly perceive each other, there's no turning back. There may be silence. There may be time. There may be distance. But what was lived still lives. What was perceived still pulses. You may pretend you've forgotten. You can. You can smile with other names. You can embrace other stories. You can even say you feel nothing anymore. But the truth doesn't leave your skin. And this person, even if they say otherwise, and still carries you. You know this. You know because you feel. Because you notice when the silence weighs, when their name appears without being called, when some random situation brings back a memory you didn't want to touch. You don't need to say anything. Your body has already responded. The memory confirmed it. The absence laid bare that person wasn't just another one. Not because they did something grand, but because they managed to enter where no one else did. And they entered because you allowed it. Yes, you let them. Even if it was unintentional, even if you didn't realize it, you let them in because there was something about them that disarmed you, a way of looking that didn't accuse, a way of existing that didn't demand. They didn't pull you out. They drew you inward, to parts of yourself that you had forgotten, and that's why you miss them. Because this person made you aware of yourself, not how you present yourself to the world, but how you truly are when no one is watching. They saw, and you allowed yourself to be seen. No shields, no filters, no need to prove anything. That's what left a mark. That's what remains. And now, even with everything that has happened, even with all the distances created, there's something that insists on not dying. The feeling that there's still something between you that's never been named. Something that lingers, something that pulses. Something that even denied manifests in the details, in dreams, in songs, in the long pauses that no one understands. And you try to move on, but everything feels out of place, because the body senses when there's no more truth, the soul notices when it's being silenced, and the heart knows when it's living half-heartedly. That's what's happening now. You're trying to corner the feeling as if it were possible to lock away a living presence. But their presence is everywhere, in your choices, in the way you compare others, in your reluctance to give yourself over again, because deep down you don't want a replacement. You want a reunion. You want that state, that awareness, that vibe that only existed with them. But you don't say it, you don't admit it, you pretend you've moved on, and so do they. They keep playing the part. Stay strong, stay cold, stay mature. But when no one is watching, that person still feels. They still wonder if you think of them, if you remember, if you go back there from time to time. And you go back. You always go back. All it takes is a scent, a similar name, a phrase that reminds you of what you shared. And everything returns, as if it never left. This is how it works with what is real. It doesn't disappear, it just retreats until a new moment brings it back, until a glance, a song, a brief opening rekindles everything that was never erased. And then you feel, and then you realize, and then you know that person is still a living point in your story, even as time passes, even as life changes, even if you never cross paths again, because there are connections that don't depend on physical presence. They depend on the intensity of perception. And you perceived too much to forget, felt too deeply to move on as if nothing happened, gave too much to pretend it was easy. It wasn't easy, it was strong, it was profound, it was yours. And now you live between what was and what could still be. This is the pain that lingers. This is the absence that remains present. This is the presence that haunts. Because even far away, it stays. It appears as nostalgia, as lack, as desire. And you try to silence it, try to be rational, try to convince yourself that it's all in the past, but it isn't in the past. It's all right here, inside. Silent screams, you might even live other stories, but this one, This one was written in a way that doesn't fade. You didn't love what they did. You loved who you became around them. And that's what you want back. It's not about having them again, it's about finding yourself again, whole, defenseless, real, as it was that time. As it was with that person. If all of this makes sense to you, then you know it wasn't just any connection. It wasn't just anyone. It was this one. And maybe it still hurts to admit. Maybe you still avoid using the right name. But the memory is alive. The perception still pulses. You still go back there, even in silence. You still miss what was only yours, what no one else understood, what maybe no one will ever be able to repeat. If this message truly resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to remember what they felt, someone who lived through something like this and pretends they've moved on. Comment down below, "I felt it all," or share the part of the story that's stuck inside. What's left unresolved? What still throbs when no one is watching? Like this video if it made you look inward. And if you want more conversations like this, more intense, more alive, more real, subscribe to the channel. Here, you won't find superficiality. Here, we talk about what no one wants to face. Here, you will find yourself. And if all this has stirred something in you, the next video will stir even more. Click here and continue with me.